You remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, the funeral, the news coverage, the grainy footage of a nation mourning. You can almost picture it, except it never happened. Mandela walked free in 1990. He became President of South Africa. He died in 2013, decades later, surrounded by family, in a bed, not a cell. So why does a memory that clear feel so real? The answer isn't that you're broken. The answer is far stranger than that. Thousands of people share this exact false memory. Not a vague feeling, a specific one. Some remember a speech. Some remember a headline. Some remember exactly where they were standing when they heard the news. And it isn't only Mandela. You might remember the Monopoly man wearing a monocle. He never did. You might remember the Berenstain Bears spelled Berenstain. It was never spelled that way, not once, in 40 years of print. You might remember a movie called Shazaam, starring the comedian Sinbad as a genie. That movie does not exist. Ask a room full of strangers about any of these, and dozens will swear, with total confidence, that you're the one who's wrong. This is called the Mandela Effect. And once you understand what's actually causing it, you'll never trust your own memory the same way again. The name itself comes from a woman named Fiona Broome, who described her own memory of Mandela's prison death online in 2010. Within hours, strangers she had never met were replying with the same memory, the same funeral, the same grief. None of them knew each other. All of them were certain. That single moment gave the phenomenon its name, but it was already happening everywhere, quietly, in smaller ways. People swear the Fruit of the Loom logo used to have a cornucopia behind the fruit. It never did. People swear Curious George had a tail. He never did, not in a single illustration, in any book, ever. Small details. Total strangers. The exact same wrong memory, over and over again. That pattern is the real mystery here, not any single glitch. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Your brain does not record memory like a camera. It doesn't store a perfect file and play it back untouched years later. It rebuilds the memory from scratch every single time you recall it. Think about that for a second. Every memory you've ever revisited has been quietly reconstructed, not replayed. And when your brain rebuilds something, it fills in the missing pieces with whatever seems logical, whether or not that piece is actually true. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus spent decades proving exactly this. In one of her most famous experiments, she convinced adult participants that they had once been lost in a shopping mall as children. It never happened. She simply described the scenario, added a few plausible details, and let their own minds do the rest. Within days, participants weren't just agreeing it might have happened. They were adding new details on their own. The color of the shirt they were wearing, the panic they felt, the stranger who helped them find their parents. None of it was real. All of it felt completely real. That's the first key to the Mandela Effect sitting right there. Your brain values a story that makes sense over a story that's actually accurate. If Berenstain simply sounds more natural to say than Berenstain, your brain quietly edits the memory to match the version that feels right. It isn't lying to you on purpose. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do, which is make fast sense of the world, even if that means smoothing over the truth to get there. But that alone doesn't explain the strangest part. If your brain edits things individually, shouldn't everyone's mistakes look completely different from each other? Why does a stranger on the other side of the planet remember the exact same wrong detail you do? This is where the second piece comes in, and it's the one people find hardest to accept. Researchers Henry Roediger and Kathleen McDermott ran a study in the 1990s that's now considered a cornerstone of memory science. They read participants a list of related words out loud: bed, rest, tired, dream, blanket, snore, pillow, yawn. Notice something. The word sleep was never on that list, but when asked to recall it afterward, the overwhelming majority of participants confidently remembered hearing the word sleep. It felt every bit as real to them as a word that had genuinely been spoken. Their brains detected the theme the list was circling around and mistook that theme for an actual memory. Now scale that experiment up to the size of a culture. Millions of people grew up around the same cartoons, the same historical footage, the same news events, half remembered secondhand through friends, textbooks, and conversations at the dinner table. When your brain fills a gap in memory, it doesn't pull randomly from nowhere. It pulls from what feels culturally logical. A wealthy tycoon character fits the image of a monocle, so some brains quietly add one, even though he never wore it. A political prisoner fighting an unjust system fits a grim, plausible ending where he never makes it out, so that version gets constructed instead. A charismatic comedian playing a genie in a 90s kids movie fits so well that an entire movie gets invented in the collective memory of an entire generation, stitched together from other genie movies that did exist. Different people, filling the same gap, using the same cultural logic, land on the exact same wrong answer. That's not a glitch in the system. That's memory working exactly as it was designed to work, just aimed at something that never actually occurred. There's a third layer to this, and it might be the most uncomfortable one. It involves how confident you feel while being completely wrong. Psychologist Ulric Neisser studied what are known as flashbulb memories, the vivid, detailed recollections people carry of shocking public events, like exactly where they were standing when they heard the news. The morning after the Challenger space shuttle disaster, Neisser asked a group of students to write down exactly where they were and how they found out. Then, 2.5 years later, he asked the same students the identical question again. The second set of answers was often wildly different from the first. Locations changed. The people they were standing with changed. Entire scenes changed. And when Neisser showed these students their own handwriting from the original account, most of them didn't correct their memory. They insisted the newer, wrong version was the true one, and quietly assumed their own earlier notes must have been the mistake. Confidence and accuracy turn out to be almost entirely unrelated. You can feel 100% certain about a memory that is 100% invented. This isn't just a fun trivia problem. Loftus's research on false memory became central to real criminal courtrooms because eyewitness testimony works exactly the same way. A witness doesn't lie on the stand when they confidently identify the wrong person. Their brain has simply done what it always does, filled a gap with a plausible face, and handed it over dressed as certainty. Dozens of wrongful convictions, later overturned by DNA evidence, trace back to a witness who was completely sure, completely sincere, and completely wrong. That's the same mechanism sitting behind a childhood cartoon bear. It just has much higher stakes when a person's freedom depends on it. So here's where it gets uncomfortable to sit with. If your brain edits memories toward whatever feels coherent, and shares those exact edits with millions of other people who grew up soaked in the same culture, and feels total, unshakable confidence regardless of whether it's actually accurate, then the Mandela Effect isn't some rare glitch in reality. It's a visible symptom of something happening in your head constantly, quietly, about nearly everything you think you remember. You just don't usually get the rare chance to compare notes with a stranger and discover the mismatch out loud. Some people hear all this and still aren't satisfied. They ask a fair question. If false memories are usually vague and foggy, why do Mandela Effect memories feel so specific, so vivid, so certain? Here's the honest answer. Specific does not mean accurate. Loftus's mall study proved this directly. The false memories her participants built weren't hazy or uncertain. They were rich with invented sensory detail, complete with colors, emotions, and specific dialogue, because your brain never flags a reconstructed memory as lower quality than a real one. A rebuilt memory feels exactly as real as an original, and sometimes it feels even more real, because it's been quietly polished a little more with every single retelling. Think about your own life for a second. A childhood story your family repeats at every holiday dinner. Do you actually remember living through that moment? Or do you remember the last time someone told you the story? Most people genuinely cannot tell the difference. That's not a personal failure on your part. That is how every functioning human memory on this planet operates, without exception. Now bring that back to today, to your actual life, right now. Every time you scroll through a feed and see the same claim repeated by different accounts, every time a rumor gets retold with slightly more confident detail added each time it's shared, you are watching Mandela Effect conditions form in real time. Not about a cartoon bear on a cereal box. About the news you consume. About your own personal history. About arguments you've had with people you love, where both of you would swear, hand on heart, with complete certainty, that you remember the conversation correctly, and the other person is somehow rewriting reality. You didn't lie about Mandela. You didn't lie about the mall, or the movie, or the monocle. Your brain simply filled a gap the same way it fills thousands of gaps every single day, using logic instead of footage, using confidence instead of proof. None of this means you're gullible. It doesn't mean your mind is weak, or broken, or unusually easy to fool. Every human brain that has ever existed runs on this exact same shortcut, because building a perfect, permanent recording of every moment would take more energy and space than any brain could ever hold. So instead, evolution chose speed over accuracy. A brain that can quickly reconstruct a plausible version of the past and act on it with total confidence survives better than a brain that pauses every few seconds to double-check its own memory files. You inherited that same shortcut from every ancestor who came before you. It kept them alive. It just doesn't happen to be built for perfect truth. The strangest part was never that your memory failed once, on one obscure detail, in one viral thread online. The strangest part is that it's doing the exact same thing again right now, quietly, about something you would bet your entire life is true.